Hey, this is Bookstar or Inventing, and I'm a huge fan of American Horror Story. I discovered the show a little bit after the Freak Show season came out. I went back and watched every episode. I've watched every episode that's come out since then, most of them multiple times. Just a huge fan. And a few months ago, I had an idea for a future season of the show. I attempted to contact some of the writers and producers, but never heard back. I posted about the idea in a couple of forums, but it didn't seem to have much interest in it. I feel like the idea still has merit. I just decided to give it one last shot and put this video out there and see if anybody else out there thinks that this would be a good idea for a future season. So I'm just going to read the main body of the email that I sent to the writers and producers and see what you all think. I think it would be cool to have a season based on some of America's best literary horror. For instance, you could set one timeline for the season in very early America, basing it on Washington Irving's The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. You could have another timeline based on one or more of Edgar Allan Poe's works. In fact, you could use The Fall of the House of Usher as a generational horror story and tie it to a later timeline set in the early 20th century, which is based on The Rats in the Walls or another H.P. Lovecraft story that plays on the theme of generational horror. And perhaps one of the residences in these stories could have a link to Murder House or My Roanoke Nightmare. And you could also bring in Charlotte Perkins Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper for this timeline. If you wanted to tie things into a timeline later in the 20th century, you could use Octavia E. Butler's novel Kindred, which features a mid-late 20th century timeline as well as an early 19th century timeline. Other authors to consider might be Charles Brockden Brown, Ray Bradbury. Perhaps this could involve a tie-in to Freak Show based on Something Wicked This Way Comes. Shirley Jackson, perhaps involving a link between The Haunting of Hill House and another domicile from your series. Richard Matheson, Anne Rice, Whitley Strieber, with a novel like Communion evoking the aliens from Asylum or Death Valley. Peter Straub, Robert Bloch, Stephen King, again a potential Freak Show tie-in here based on Pennywise from It, or Dean Koontz. If you wanted a timeline set in the modern day, you might talk to some up-and-coming horror writers, or take something from Creepypasta, or even sponsor a writing contest to find and adapt a story for your series. This season could be mostly an anthology horror season, with perhaps a small number of anchoring storylines, or it could be mostly a few anchoring storylines with brief forays into other stories. It could be called perhaps American Horror Story Library, or American Horror Story Parchment, or something similar, and it could be rooted in the Miskatonic Library, or another arcane and terrible institution. Anyway, folks, that's my idea. I just wanted to throw it out there. I think it has some potential. What do you think? Would you like to see an American Horror Story season based on this idea, based on American horror writers? If you like it or don't like it, please let me know. If you have another idea for an AHS season, please comment and let me know, or you can message me or whatever. There's contact information in the description. But yeah, just wanted to throw this idea out there, and y'all have a fantastic day.